solar system is made up of the Sun and all of the smaller objects that move around it. Apart from the Sun, the largest members of the solar system are the 8 major planets. Nearest the Sun are 4 fairly small, rocky planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. Beyond Mars is the asteroid belt, a region populated by millions of rocky objects. These are leftovers from the formation of the planets, 4.5 billion years ago. On the far side of the asteroid belt are the 4 gas giants: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. These planets are much bigger than Earth, but very lightweight for their size. They are mostly made of hydrogen and helium. Until recently, the furthest known planet was an icy world called Pluto. However, Pluto is dwarfed by Earth's moon and many astronomers think it is too small to be called a true planet. An object named Eris, which is at least as big as Pluto, was discovered very far from the Sun in 2005. More than 1,000 icy worlds such as Eris have been discovered beyond Pluto in recent years. These are called Kuiper Belt objects. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union decided that Pluto and Eris must be classed as dwarf planets. Even further out are the comets of the Oort cloud. These are so far away that they are invisible in even the largest telescopes. Every so often one of these comets is disturbed and heads towards the Sun. It then becomes visible in the night sky. Mercury is the first planet from the Sun. It is not very easy to observe since it is always close to the Sun in the sky. Even when best placed, it is close to the horizon and only visible for a few hours after sunset or before sunrise. Named after the winged messenger of the gods, the planet speeds around the Sun once every 88 days. However, it spins on its axis very slowly, once every 58.6 days. This is exactly 2/3 of its orbital period. Mercury is a small, rocky world. It is only about as wide as the Atlantic Ocean and 18 Mercuries would fit inside the Earth. Mercury is very like the Moon. Its surface is covered with impact craters. It has no atmosphere and no water. The noon temperature at the equator can soar to 450 degrees Celsius, but the nights are extremely cold, below -180 degrees Celsius. There may be some water ice in the deep, dark craters near the poles. Mercury is surprisingly dense. It is thought to have a large iron core that fills most of Mercury's interior. It also has a surprisingly strong magnetic field. So far, less than half of the surface has been imaged at close range by the Mariner 10 spacecraft. ESA and Japan are planning to send 2 orbiter spacecraft to Mercury in 2013. The Bepi-Colombo mission is named after a famous Italian mathematician and scientist. Venus is the second planet from the Sun, so it is always fairly close to the Sun in the sky. It appears as a brilliant morning or evening star, the brightest object in the night sky apart from the Moon. In a telescope, it can be seen to go through phases, just like the Moon. Venus is so bright because it is covered by clouds that reflect much of the incoming sunlight. The yellowish clouds are made of sulfur and sulfuric acid. In some ways, Venus is Earth's twin. It is about the same size and made of the same rocky materials. It also comes closer to us than any other planet. However, it is blanketed with a thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide, the gas that we breathe out. This atmosphere is so dense that walking through would be like wading through water. The carbon dioxide traps most of the heat from the Sun. The cloud layers also act as a blanket. The result is a runaway greenhouse effect that has caused the planet's temperature to soar to 465 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. This means that Venus is even hotter than Mercury. Without special protection, a visitor to Venus would die instantly, crushed by the immense air pressure, suffocated by the atmosphere, burned to a crisp by the scorching heat, and dissolved by the acid. The surface of Venus has been mapped by radar. The maps show thousands of volcanoes and impact craters. There are 2 main upland areas, with a mountain range taller than Mt. Everest. Dozens of spacecraft have visited Venus, but many mysteries remain. ESA's Venus Express has been in near-polar orbit around the planet since it arrived in April 2006. Most of its instruments have been studying the dense atmosphere and rapidly moving clouds, or investigating how the Sun affects the planet. However, its infrared sensor has also been able to map some of the surface and show that active volcanoes may exist on Earth's neighbor. Everyone on Earth is a traveler through space. First, the Earth zooms around the Sun at a speed of 30 kilometers per second, 45 times faster than Concorde. It takes 365 days, 1 year, to complete one orbit of the Sun. It also spins very quickly, like a top that is leaning to one side. People living at the equator travel from west to east at a speed of 1,670 kilometers per hour. The speed is slower for people living near the poles. Since everything around us is moving in the same way, we do not usually notice our high-speed journey. The most obvious way to tell is to watch the sun, moon and stars as they appear to move across the sky. The tilt of the axis that joins the north and south poles means that the Earth has seasons. When the North Pole points towards the sun, then it is summer in the northern countries. When the North Pole points away from the sun, these countries have their winter. The seasons are the exact opposite to the south of the equator. Studies of fossils in ancient rocks tell us that life probably began about 4 billion years ago, when the Earth was very young. No one knows how life began on Earth. Most scientists think that it began in liquid water. But was this in pools on the surface, or underground, or at the bottom of oceans where volcanic activity forms hot springs? Experiments show that the chemical building blocks of life can form in space or on Earth. Many of them must have come to Earth with falling meteorites and comets. Somehow, these simple organic chemicals came together to form more advanced molecules. Then they began to copy themselves and grow. What we do know is that, once it gets underway, life is incredibly tough. Living bacteria have been found in frozen Antarctica, in boiling hot water and inside rocks up to 5 km underground. We also know that such organisms can survive for years in the harsh environment of space. Once plants became widespread, large amounts of oxygen were released into the air. Earth became the only planet in our solar system with an oxygen-rich atmosphere. By searching for oxygen on other worlds, we may one day find evidence of alien life. Earth is like no other planet that we have yet observed. It is the only world we know that has large areas of surface water and a lot of oxygen in its atmosphere. It is also the only world known to support life. This makes it very special. Seen from spacecraft or from the moon, the Earth appears as a blue planet, an oasis in space. This is because about 7/10 of its surface is covered by oceans. When the water is heated by the sun, it changes to a gas, known as water vapor. If this gas is cooled, it turns back to water droplets, forming clouds and rain. This water cycle is made possible because Earth lies 150 million kilometers from the Sun, in the Goldilocks zone of the solar system. As the third planet from the Sun, Earth is neither too hot nor too cold for oceans to exist. The temperature is also just right for life. And it has stayed that way for billions of years. Earth is the largest of the 4 rocky planets in our solar system. It is very heavy for its size. At its center is a large, iron-rich core, where the temperature reaches 6,000 degrees Celsius, as hot as the surface of the Sun. The liquid outer core churns around as the planet spins, acting like a dynamo on a bicycle. This dynamo causes the Earth to behave like a strong magnet. Forming an invisible bubble around the planet, Earth's magnetic field acts like a shield. This protects the planet from most of the high-speed particles blasted into space by solar storms. Sometimes particles break through the barrier near the magnetic poles. This results in Earth's auroras, commonly known as the northern and southern lights. Earth's surface is also protected by the thick atmosphere. This blocks out most of the harmful radiation from space. It also causes small incoming objects to burn up as shooting stars. Only the larger meteorites and comets reach the surface and explode, leaving large craters. Unlike the Moon and other rocky planets, there are few impact craters on Earth today. Most of them have been worn away or filled in by the action of flowing water, wind and ice. Mars is often called the red planet because it appears in the sky as an orange-red star. The color caused the ancient Greeks and Romans to name it after their god of war. Today, thanks to visiting spacecraft, we know that the planet's appearance is due to rust in the Martian rocks. Mars is the 4th planet from the Sun. It orbits the Sun at an average distance of 228 million kilometers, half as far again as the Earth, so human visitors would find it very cold. Although summers near the equator can be quite warm, the average temperature is 63 degrees Celsius below zero, similar to winters in Antarctica. The nights are also bitterly cold. The first humans on Mars will have other problems to face. The air is 100 times thinner than on Earth, and mostly made up of carbon dioxide. Human explorers will have to wear oxygen masks and special suits every time they step outside their sealed homes. Violent storms can whip up clouds of dust. Sometimes these spread rapidly around the entire planet, hiding the surface from view. Beyond the asteroid belt is Jupiter, the fifth planet from the Sun. Everything about Jupiter is large. It is so big that it could easily swallow all of the other planets, or more than 1,300 Earths. It also weighs more than twice as much as all the other planets. Despite its huge size, Jupiter is the fastest spinning planet, rotating once in less than 10 hours. Jupiter is 5 times as far from the Sun as the Earth, so its surface temperature is low, around -145 degrees Celsius. Every 13 months or so it comes closer to us and becomes very bright in the night sky. Jupiter is a giant ball of gas, with no solid surface. It is mainly made of the very light gases, hydrogen and helium. Telescopes show a cloudy atmosphere with colorful belts and spots. The largest feature, called the Great Red Spot, is a giant storm, several times the size of the Earth. It has been blowing non-stop for more than 300 years. Jupiter has a faint ring of dust, over 100,000 kilometers wide, that was discovered by the Voyager spacecraft. It is also orbited by the largest family of satellites, 63 at the latest count. 4 of these, discovered by the Italian scientist Galileo in 1610, are very big. Io has hundreds of volcanoes that cover its surface with yellow-orange sulfur. Europa has a smooth, icy surface that looks like a cracked eggshell. Ganymede has light and dark patches with grooves and craters. Callisto has an ancient, cratered surface. Saturn is the 6th planet from the Sun. It was thought to be the furthest of the planets until the telescope was invented. Second only in size to Jupiter, Saturn is made mainly of the light gases hydrogen and helium. 764 Earths would fit inside Saturn, but the gas giant weighs only 95 times as much as our rocky world. If you could put all of the planets in a pool of water, Saturn is the only one that would float. Despite its size, Saturn spins once in a little more than 10 hours. Its spin is so rapid that it bulges outwards at the equator, making it look like a ball that has been squashed. In a telescope, Saturn appears a pale yellow color. It has no solid surface, so what we are seeing are clouds that appear as light and dark bands. These clouds are blown along by very strong winds. Much of the heat that drives these winds comes from inside the planet. Above the cloud tops is a flat, disc-shaped system of rings. Much of what we know about Saturn has come from the NASA ESA Cassini-Huygens mission. The Cassini orbiter has been in orbit around the planet since July 1, 2004. It has been exploring many of Saturn's moons, especially planet-sized Titan. It has also sent back remarkably detailed pictures and other data about Saturn's thunderstorms, the thousands of icy ringlets and the magnetic field. On January 14, 2005, Europe's Huygens probe parachuted onto the hidden surface of Titan. It was the first soft landing on another planetary satellite, apart from our moon. Orange Titan was found to be a strange, icy world where methane rain fills lakes and rivers. Uranus is the 7th planet from the Sun. It was discovered by William Herschel in 1781. Uranus lies more than 2,800 million kilometers from the Sun. At this distance, the temperature of its cloud tops is -214 degrees Celsius. It moves quite slowly and has a long way to travel, so each orbit lasts 84 years. Uranus is a giant world, the 3rd largest planet in our solar system. 64 Earths would fit inside it. Despite its size, it spins rapidly. A day on Uranus lasts only 17 hours 14 minutes. Uranus spins like a top knocked over on its side. This means that the Sun is sometimes directly overhead at the poles. Each pole has a summer and a winter lasting 21 years, making them the hottest and coldest places on the planet. When the Voyager 2 spacecraft visited Uranus in 1986, hardly any clouds were visible. However, recent images by the Hubble Space Telescope have shown some very large storms. The main gases in its thick atmosphere are hydrogen and helium, with a small amount of methane. The methane scatters blue light, which is why Uranus appears blue. However, it is very different from Jupiter and Saturn. Uranus is mainly made of ices, a mixture of water, methane and ammonia. At its center there may be a small rocky core. This means that it is very lightweight for its size. Uranus has 27 known moons. None of these are very big. The largest satellites are Oberon and Titania, both more than 1,500 kilometers in diameter. Uranus also has at least a dozen dark, dusty rings. Most of these are extremely thin. They are kept in shape by nearby shepherd moons. At least one ring is created by meteorites crashing into a small satellite. Neptune was discovered in 1846 by Johann Galle, an astronomer at the Berlin Observatory. Galle knew where to look because of calculations by French mathematician Urbain Le Verrier. Both Le Verrier and John Adams in England had realized that an unseen planet was pulling on Uranus, causing it to slow down or speed up. Neptune turned out to be almost an identical twin of Uranus. It is 57 times bigger than the Earth, but spins quite rapidly. One day lasts only 16 hours 7 minutes. Its average distance from the Sun is about 4,500 million kilometers, and 1 year on Neptune lasts for almost 165 Earth years. Like Uranus, it has an atmosphere of hydrogen, helium and methane. Its interior is made of ices, with a possible rocky core. Although the atmosphere is very cold, -220 degrees Celsius, the blue planet has some very strong winds and violent storms. Voyager 2 imaged a huge spot the size of the Earth. Neptune has at least 5 dark, narrow rings, named after Galle, Le Verrier, Adams and others who worked to discover the planet. It has 13 known moons. By far the largest is Triton, an icy world that is bigger than Pluto. Triton is very cold, so its thin atmosphere has frozen onto the surface. However, it does have many active ice volcanoes that spurt plumes of gas and dust. Triton is also unusual because it travels the wrong way, east to west, around Neptune. It seems to have been captured by Neptune's gravity long ago. Pluto was discovered in 1930 by 24-year-old Clyde Tombaugh, who was using a special machine to compare photos of the sky. It turned out to be a tiny world, even smaller than our moon. Pluto follows an elliptical, egg-shaped, orbit that varies between 7,381 million kilometers, 49 Sun-Earth distances, and 4,446 million kilometers, 30 Sun-Earth distances. Since one orbit lasts 248 years, no one born on Pluto would ever experience a single birthday. Very little is known about Pluto. Its surface is extremely cold, -230 degrees Celsius, and seems to be covered with frozen ices. In recent years it has been fairly close to the Sun and enjoying a brief summer. Surface ices have vaporized, producing a thin atmosphere. However, it is now retreating into the cold depths of the solar system and this atmosphere will soon freeze again. Pluto spins backwards, east to west, once every 6 days 9 hours. Its largest moon, Charon, takes the same length of time to orbit Pluto. This means that anyone living on one side of Pluto would never see Charon. 2 smaller moons have recently been discovered with the Hubble Space Telescope. For many years, Pluto was accepted as the 9th planet from the Sun, even though it sometimes comes closer than Neptune. Today, it is regarded as a dwarf planet. It is also one of the largest members of the Kuiper Belt, a family of icy worlds that occupy the space beyond Neptune. Modern telescopes have revealed hundreds of icy objects beyond the orbit of Neptune, in a region known as the Kuiper Belt. The belt is named after Gerard Kuiper, a Dutch-born astronomer who suggested in 1951 that some comets may originate in this region. The first Kuiper Belt object was discovered in 1992, proving that Kuiper's theory was correct. Detecting them is difficult because they are very faint and move so slowly. It takes hundreds of years for these objects to complete one orbit around the Sun. The objects are probably leftovers from the birth of the planets. They were ejected to this remote outer region by interactions with the giant planets. Most of the objects are small, typically 10 to 50 kilometers across. Until recently, Pluto was the largest member, though a number of other objects were almost as large. Then, in 2005, an even bigger object was found. Known as 2003 UB313, scientists nicknamed it Xena, after the warrior princess in the hit TV series, until they could give it a proper name, Eris. When discovered, Eris was twice as far as Pluto, 97 Sun-Earth distances, from the Sun. This made it the furthest object yet seen in the solar system. Its orbit is also tilted by 44 degrees, so it travels well above and below the paths of the other planets. It has also been found to have a moon, named Dysnomia. Not everyone agrees that Pluto and Eris should be regarded as the 9th and 10th planet in the solar system. In 2006, the International Astronomical Union classed them as dwarf planets. Hi friends. If you learned something through this video, then please support us. Have a nice day. Goodbye and take care.